Ryan Hennessy, thanks for joining me on the Mindful podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
You're just back from tour.
Yeah.
What is that feeling like when you just step off that crazy moving train and you roll into the undergrowth?
It's a great way to describe it, actually. It feels exactly like that.
Yeah.
It feels unsettling, I would say. Yeah. I feel uprooted. It's weird because when you go on tour, you feel uprooted for the first kind of week. And then you settle in and you're like, you just get really used to it. And you get used to being around everybody, because I'm quite a recluse in general. But then when you're on a tour bus, luckily we all get along in the band, so that's a good thing. But you just get used to it and that environment. So when you come off tour and you're back in your bedroom in silence, it's really unsettling. I have to say, it is like...
People might find that strange that you're a recluse who stands in front of tens of thousands of people night after night.
Yeah, I get that a lot, yeah.
Do you think it's possible, obviously it is, to be comfortable in both places, but you need both places?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are often surprised and disappointed when they meet me off stage. I feel the disappointment, because they think I'm going to be running around the place in this crazy person, but I'm quite not reserved. Maybe I am reserved, I don't know.
At least they know what you look like.
Yeah.
Having worked in radio for 20 years, people are disappointed that A, you're not as exciting or funny as they thought you were.
Yeah.
But B, you look nothing like they had hoped you'd look like.
I never thought of that, actually. Yeah. At least
they're
know.
like, you know.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to know what image you had in your head, but it was obviously better than what you're looking at.
Yeah.
But
I've felt that, often. It is the thing, it's like, something that other people say that I don't actually agree with is that I'm two different people. I don't agree with that at all. I don't like that, actually. I don't know why, but people say, you're two different people on and off stage. On stage, you're this uber confident, outlandish and, in your face kind of person. And I think I'm equally as confident off the stage, but I'm just not telling you,
Yeah.
On stage, I'm telling you how confident I am and how comfortable I feel. But off stage, I'm not, but I don't like that I'm two different people, because I'm very much myself in both places, and probably more myself on stage in a way. I think more I am reserved in some ways off stage, where I can be a little bit uncomfortable in certain situations, but in terms of I can be uncomfortable being myself. I can be quite guarded, but on stage I'm totally guardless, and people would consider it uber confident, but I would consider it uber vulnerable.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
On stage, uber vulnerable.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that simply by the fact that you have so many eyes on you, or is it the fact that you're putting so much of yourself into your performance? Or
I think it's that, yeah. It's putting so much of myself into my performance, and it's a very emotional roller coaster of a show. It's from the word go. If anybody who has seen a show will know, it's a very dynamic show in terms of its... When you hear our music, it's pop music, so you kind of probably expect to come to a show that's a little bit middle of the road, and it's a gig. I never refer to our shows as a gig. It's not a gig, it's a show, and it's a dynamic thing that has this flow from start to finish. Starts off quite raucous and rocky, and kind of develops its way into this moment of tenderness in the set, and kind of gets back up to that high energy. But there's moments on the stage where I feel, just super vulnerable in terms of how I'm expressing myself. It's kind of nothing to do with who's standing in front of me, really. It's all to do with myself.
Because when you I recently watched that Robbie Williams documentary on Netflix, and he's just one example of, I guess, when you get a peek behind the curtain, that not as all as it seems.
Yeah.
And it would be hard for people to believe, I remember him playing Slane, and he always had the air of the most confident man in the world. That was kind of his thing, was, Mr. Confidence.
Yeah.
When you watch the documentary, you see actually he was essentially having a 2-hour panic attack.
Yeah, totally.
For that gig and many others like it.
Yeah.
How do you avoid, and maybe this is where meditation comes in, but how do you avoid getting yourself into that scenario where your career moves faster than your own level of self-awareness, and most importantly, your own level of self-confidence? Because if things go faster than you're ready for, then you start to hit those imposter syndrome, everything's out of my control moments where, like we saw in that documentary, you're freaking out at a time when you should be, absolutely loving the moment.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can totally relate to him in so many ways in seeing that documentary in terms of that kind of, your career growing exponentially and your personal growth, people think happens hand in hand. When it doesn't, it can often go the other way. And for me, it did at a certain point, and it was only really, I'm at a stage now, which is a beautiful place where I stand on stage and I feel the love from the audience, and it feels deserved to me now. Before it felt totally undeserved because I didn't love myself, which is what I had to come to realize. It felt really foreign to feel that. And it's just, listen, what people don't realize is it's totally unnatural for a human to feel that level of love anyway. You know what I mean? It's insane to stand in front of 30,000 people that are just all there showering you with that much love. That's unnatural in many ways, So to come off stage and go into your life and try and navigate your life without that, then when you're getting glimpses of that.
It's like, it's almost like a love plumbing system or something where you're constantly increasing the volume of water or love flowing through it, and raising the pressure and the volume and the pressure and the volume. So if your own internal mental and emotional plumbing system isn't secure, it'll start to crack and there'll be love spraying everywhere in all the wrong directions. Maybe I've pushed that analogy to its limits, but that's what kind of struck me, and it really made me think about performers like yourselves who have that unique experience of tens of thousands of people just, as you say, showering love at you. And how do you process that? How do you just go, good night, everybody, and then go, all right, lads, kebab, is it? Without, not that you're walking around thinking, I'm great, aren't I? But it's got to have a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
Because it's so intense. I guess it's like being an F1 driver or something, that you do something unnatural and incredible to most people. And then you're expected to be sort of, nipping down to the shops and feeling fine.
Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible to just be okay with that, I think. And I think for me, I think I'm lucky in terms of I'm in a band, so and in a band with people that I love and that love me, so I'm very lucky to have like a comfort blanket as soon as I come off. I really feel for solo artists that have like, they have their own band, but it's not the same kind of thing.
You're a bit like an employer in that situation, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
As well as a performer, you're also the boss.
Yeah, and everybody kind of knows that, It's a kind of an unspoken thing. For us, something that we've done quite a few times, especially on the end of big tours, is we all go on holiday together. And we stay together. So the four of us in the band, we go on like a lad's holiday together. And
really?
Which I'm sure a lot of other bands will be listening going, you're absolutely insane. The last thing you want to do after a tour is go on a holiday with the band.
Yeah.
But something we do, we stay together. It's like a thing where we go and we debrief together rather than all of us going to our own homes and kind of dealing with that alone.
But I know you too tend to have done that over the years. Yeah. Maybe not all four of them at the same time, but they definitely would have nipped down to the south of France and hung out and
it makes a lot of sense.
And I guess you get to see, it's important you get to see each other relaxed as well as working.
Yeah, I think it's just like cutting it off instantly is just, that's equally as unnatural as what just happened, So it's nice to kind of go away together and be in that space and kind of have the come down together. But there has been moments, that moment literally came from when we played the RDS in 2018, and we had to get like police escort from the stage to the hotel in order to get out in time. So we literally, from the end of the song, the band were all still playing, and then I'm in a van, and then all the band come and jump in, and then like within 10 minutes
Somebody said step on it.
Yeah, and within 10 minutes I'm standing in a hotel room by myself. Within 10 minutes I was like, my ears still ringing, 35,000 people standing in front of you, now you're in a hotel room alone. I was like, I cannot do that. This is insane. And it was from that we all met together downstairs and we're like, we're booking a holiday for tomorrow. We just have to get out here. And we
That's
did.
mental, yeah. A few minutes later, after thousands of adoring fans, you're standing in your hotel room watching A Place in the Sun on the telly.
Yeah, in your jocks. That was me. I literally was standing in my jocks going, what am I doing? This is insane. It's crazy.
Peter and Deirdre are looking for a place in Fuerteventura. How did it come to this?
Yeah.
Anyone who listens to your music reads your poetry will know you're a deep thinker. And, you know, when you told me that you had started meditating, it was in a way no surprise, because you're a man who looks inwards a lot.
Yeah.
And marry that with the lifestyle that you have and the job that you have. You know, I guess meditation is offering you lots of things. We'll get to that. But, you know, and there's similarities. When I was looking at your wonderful book, Syncopated Blue, again, and one of the last poems in it is, there's just a few lines that kind of stuck out with me. I don't know how to express all my insides. If you dive into your head, oh no, sorry, I'm getting mixed up here. I'm gonna reverse, because one of your poems is very like the lyrics to "Song to Myself,"
Right.
and that's why I'm getting myself tongue tied here. The poem for young men that you have in Syncopated Blue, which is, young men, be the versions of yourselves you love, and own up to the feelings that you feel you're guilty of.
Yeah.
You know, which to me shows a lovely self-awareness, you know, that idea that we carry around these thoughts that maybe are a little bit ugly, and we kind of push them down and cover them up, or maybe numb ourselves from them. But again, it's an awareness of those kinds of thoughts that you're having. And then some lyrics in Song to Myself is, I don't know how to express all my insides, which is a lovely line. And if you dive into your head, make sure you don't drown. I wish I had a brain that was nice to me. You know, they're all, you know, they're all thoughts and lines of someone who is very acutely aware of what's happening underneath their skin and underneath their skull.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe like a lot of artists, it can be torture sometimes when you do have that level of awareness of what's happening in there.
Yeah.
Is this one of the reasons why meditation seems to give you peace of mind? Is that it settles that sort of frantic inward gaze?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I think for me, the best way to describe it is it flicks the autopilot switch off. You know, I feel like I'm in autopilot all the time, and all of these thoughts, negative thoughts and toxic thoughts and just harmful thoughts are happening all the time. And when I get to, and not addressing them for me personally is the worst thing to do. And when I'm in autopilot, they're not being addressed and they're just bouncing around my head and they're there. But then when I get to meditate, I'm able to actually sit with them and address them, you know, within myself and allow them to be. I think that's the thing. It's like, if you dive into your head, make sure you don't drown. You know, you can go in there, but don't get stuck in there.
Yeah.
Really, it's dip in there and see what's going on and see what you can take out. And it's the same with the line of, I wish I had a brain that was nice to me. I feel like I don't always have a brain that's nice to me, but I have to try and be as nice to it as I possibly can be, is what I've really learned.
So how did you start then? What made you start meditating?
I started in, my first kind of brush with it was in 2020. I went to start to see a Reiki coach. That was kind of my introduction to my mind for the very first time. It was recommended to me by a friend at the time, because I started to feel a little bit lost in lockdown, when your identity, or what I perceived as my identity, was kind of taken away. My identity being the band. And I started to feel lost, and I was single and living by myself for the first time and all of this stuff. And I just started to feel very kind of lost I think for the first time in my life, probably, because I was always very sure of myself and who I am in many ways. And a friend recommended a Reiki coach, and that changed my life. Going to Reiki changed my life, changed my heart, changed my brain, everything.
So for people who don't know, explained kind of clumsily, Reiki is where you're lying down and someone is essentially it's a form of energy healing.
Yeah. So I, for my session, I would go in and lie down, and my amazing coach Pauline would read my energy, basically. Yeah, run her hands over my body and feel where there's energy that needs to be addressed. And you know, I always feel a bit awkward talking about that aspect of it. I'm learning not to. I think maybe I felt a bit like embarrassed to talk about that aspect of it, because the part for me really in Reiki is it's the part after that where I sit down and then talk to her about that. You know, I think people, when they hear Reiki, if they know anything about it, they think it's a bit, you know, witchy or something. I think, you know, all this stuff is
A bit
going on.
woo-woo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a bit of that. So I always felt embarrassed actually to talk about it, which was wrong for me because I shouldn't. And I remember actually talking about it on the radio and then talking to Pauline about it afterwards, and she was like, don't be embarrassed to talk about that, you know. It's that gets us to then for you to be able to sit in the chair and me to be able to say what's going on with this part of your life. And it's been the healing I've had through it has been just honestly life-changing, and I think
So what was it offering you? It was basically sort of just presenting you with things going, this seems to be an issue for you, what do you think?
Yeah.
And then so it's almost like a counselling session then.
it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like CBT to me, like that cognitive behavioral therapy. It feels like that to me, you know. Maybe it's not, but it feels like that, because that's the thing that I find is like, if Reiki was just that first part where they're reading your energy and then telling you there's this and this wrong, I'll see you later, you'd be like, I'd be 10 times worse. I'd be going away thinking, I didn't know there was that wrong with me, you know what I mean? It's the part where you get to sit and talk about it then that's been the real growth. And it becomes just a therapy session then, where Pauline will say to me, what's going on? Why am I feeling this? And then, is there any reason? Can you think of anything why I'd be feeling an energy block here or whatever? And then it becomes apparent very, very quickly, you know, what it is. But I had a fear when I started Reiki and therapy and all of that it would take away from my creativity. That was always my biggest fear, was that.
That's interesting. Why would you feel that?
Because I write from hurt a lot, you know. So a lot of my songs come from hurt and heartache and all that feeling. So I thought, if I figure myself out, what am I going to write about? Yeah.
Everything is great.
Yeah, that's literally what I was thinking. I was like, I'm going to be that insufferable guy now, where I'm singing every song is super uplifting, you know, where people need to feel the hurt, you know. But what actually happened was it took away a layer, and it allowed me to access the hurt and access myself much faster, which actually benefited my songwriting and benefited the heart and soul in my songwriting, because there was a layer of kind of self-hatred and lack of self-worth and all this stuff that was getting in my way, and that kind of got cleared, and it allowed me to access myself easier.
Well, that's interesting, because I think sometimes people, I've heard that kind of thing before, that particularly with kind of high achieving business people, they're like, well, I don't want to start meditating or doing stuff like that because it's going to take my edge.
Yeah.
You know, I'll suddenly be just floating around like, you know, Jesus and his apostles saying, hey man, everything's cool.
Yeah.
Why make profits? But you know, and obviously that's not the case. A lot of the time, if we don't have a level of self-awareness, or if we are running on adrenaline all the time, we're not going to be performing terribly effectively. We're not going to be making great decisions. And a lot of the time, we're throwing roadblocks in our own way. You know, so meditation offers you the chance to maybe remove some of those roadblocks, operate from a place of a bit more confidence and stillness.
Yeah.
But you're never going to lose your edge. Your edge comes from confidence. It doesn't come from crap sleep, loads of coffee, you know, and tons of self-doubt.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your practice then. How did you get into the actual meditation, and what do you do?
It was so Pauline, my coach, had recommended, she sent me a couple of videos of like you know, guided meditation stuff to follow along to on YouTube. And the first time I tried it, I couldn't get into it. I know that's the story of so many people. You try it the first few times and you can't get into it. But I do remember one time just feeling like there was one point actually where I have had anger issues my whole life, and I've been reactionary my whole life. Really, I've been super reactionary to my emotions, and anything that upsets me, I'm very knee-jerk reaction to it, you know.
So if somebody says something to you don't like, you're coming straight back at them and
absolutely
slamming a few doors and storming out of the pub, that kind of thing.
Yeah, storming into the pub.
Into a different pub. You storm out of one and into the one next door. Show them.
Yeah. No, storming back in to find the person that said something to me would be how I would deal with it a lot of the time, you know, which is not good, really, really bad. And so my whole life I've been super reactionary. And then
you do reference that in one of your poems about 5-0 or something.
Yeah. Bar fight record,
your bar fight record. I was wondering, was that like, you know, is that based on reality, or so you were, if something annoyed you, you wouldn't mind if it turned physical? That's how you expressed yourself.
That was how I expressed myself growing up a lot of the time. But something that I realized on this tour, I was talking to Cliff, and who's our bass player, and Nikki, who's our session guitarist. I was talking to them one night, and we often have very deep conversations on the tour bus, you know. But I was saying that I realized that for me, and sorry, I keep dodging the meditation thing. I'm going to come back to it, but
Sure.
I realized that for me growing up, the word violence is a very strong word, but it was the atmosphere that I grew up in. I grew up in a very violent kind of state and state, you know. So it was like, it was normal for me to express myself through violence, which is awful. But I've come to a point in my life where I've realized that violence can be beautiful in many ways, in terms of the live show to me feels violent. The energy of it feels like this violent thing in a nice way, where I'm getting out all of this energy. And I wrote a song recently that's called Almost Violent. And it was like, my love for you it almost feels violent. It's at that level. And that's probably a really bad way to express it, you know, because violent has so many negative connotations, as it should, but it's just
But it means something different to you.
Yeah, it's more so the intensity, really. It's really the intensity of the love. I would equate the intensity of violence, you know, and I've felt that so many times.
But sometimes, I don't know how to put this without it sounding like really off, but like, you know, the way you particularly in the early start of a romance, you're like, God, like, I love you so much, I just want to crush your head.
Yeah,
No,
totally. Yeah, that's it.
It's not in a domestic violence way, but you know that feeling, like, I just want to, because like hugging and squeezing and all that just isn't enough. So that you feel like, I just want to, you know,
totally,
I just want to, I don't know, pull your head off or something.
Yeah. That's exactly it. You know, I felt that so many times. And
people are really listening to this now, going, "What the hell is wrong with him?"
Really dark.
And should we call his wife? But I think some people might know what we mean. You know?
Yeah, I think so. And I think for me, so what happened in terms of meditation was, I had a moment when we had just played. I've never actually talked about this, but we had just played Electric Picnic last year. We headlined, and that festival means the world to me and to us, because it's 7 minutes from my doorstep to the main stage, you know, where I grew up. So my whole life, Athy was a ghost town on Electric Picnic songs. Everyone was in the field in Strawberry.
Yeah.
And it was just this thing where every star in the world was coming there and performing. And I never even considered that I would ever do it, you know, because I wasn't even into music for most of my life. I was just playing football. So I was like, I was used to hearing the kind of horror stories of people camping and all that kind of thing. But as soon as I got into music, that was the big goal, was imagine if we ever got to even just play Electric Picnic. That would be incredible.
Yeah. Think of it the reverse. It's like you playing the guitar in a local pub beside Old Trafford. And then suddenly ending up, I think I'll play for Man United.
Yeah. You'd never think that, you know.
That's amazing. The fact that it was over your back wall.
Yeah, it was right there. You know, you can literally hear the festival from my back garden.
Yeah.
But there was, getting to headline that, and we've been lucky enough to headline it twice now, and it's been 2 hallmark moments in my life, and thankfully this time around I was able to be much more present than I was the first time, which has been a really nice way to be able to play shows. But then, like 2 days later, I was in the queue in the airport, and I was flying to London, and there was this crew of people behind me that were working they had been working at Electric Picnic. This English crew who kind of, obviously, I don't think knew anything about the band or whatever, but they clocked who I was straight away. And then they started talking very loudly about me behind me, and very negatively.
Oh my God.
About me. And they were all laughing, like it was like a group of like 6 or 7 men, just laughing about the band and about me and about my appearance and about just about the band in general, really.
Knowing that you were in earshot.
Yeah, knowing that they were purposefully doing it to try and get a reaction out of me, you know. And
these were people who were employed at the festival.
Yeah, I don't know who they were working for. I did look into it at first, but then I was like, you know, I got to the point where I was just like, I don't care. But they were working at the festival as like part of crew, so I don't know who was employing them. I did reach out through the various channels, and it was nobody that was employed by anybody that I work with, if you know what I mean, in terms of any of the agencies or anything. But yeah, it was just so, the anger that I felt in the moment, I just wanted to physically react, you know, and it was the highest boiling point I had gotten to since I was a teenager, you know, because having come out of the environment that I grew up in, I haven't felt the need to feel aggressive or feel angry in that way or reactionary in a physical manner, and I felt it there, you know. I felt like,
But to go from the high of the performance,
Yeah.
as you say, one of these highlight moments, the highlight reel of your life, to straight after that, you're getting this from behind you, just bringing you right down the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a multitude of emotions there was the anger and all of that, but just disappointment in humanity, really.
Yeah.
Just like, I can't believe you're doing that. Like, you're grown men and I'm younger, not that even age even matters, but you can tell I was a lot younger than them, and that I just performed to however many thousands of people that was, and you're still standing there behind it. So I felt like, can I not do anything? Can I not do the most amazing thing in the world? Stand on stage in front of 60,000 people and rock that field for an hour, and I'm still standing in a queue in the airport and just getting berated, passive aggressively berated, which is a huge. If they came to me and were aggressively towards me, I would have respected it way more, and I would have been like, I would have accepted it way more if they were just addressed me and said, I don't like your band, I don't like how you look, all of that. Still would have been a terrible thing to do, but I would have preferred it than standing behind me and talking about me loudly on purpose. I just found it very kind of cowardly, and passive aggression I just really detest. But anyway, what happened was then I just knew that I couldn't react. It would be the wrong thing to do. I'd be letting myself down, letting my band down, and letting my family down, and the whole thing, because we just had this amazing thing happen in terms of that show. And I just Googled, I went on, and for some reason something told me to act with compassion towards them, which felt really unnatural to me. And I just looked up a meditation on the plane. I was like, I need to do something. So first I looked up fast anger management. I remember typing that into YouTube. Like, is there an anger management class I can take in 5 minutes on
right
the plane?
now?
Yeah. And there was just like nothing that I could get. But then there was like, the first thing I looked up was meditation on how to ease anger and frustration and all that. And I did that. And then for some reason I was just compelled to feel compassionate towards them. I don't know why. And then I did another guided meditation on just kind of compassion really and understanding. And that was the breakthrough moment for me, where it was like I went from being at 100 level of anger and just volatileness to feeling compassionate for the same people that I felt that for. And I was just like, wow, I did not know that was possible in that space of time as well. And that was true meditation. And that was on a plane, going to London after playing a huge festival. It's kind of an unorthodox way to find meditation. And they all are really, everyone has their story. But
you must be the only rock star who when faced with, in your face negativity, has reacted by looking up a loving kindness meditation.
Literally.
Would Liam Gallagher have done? What would Liam have done? I wonder.
That's my idol as well,
Yeah.
So,
but like, for me, the most beautiful part of all that, and of course the meditations will help diffuse that and can help shift your mind into a different space and your desire to react into a different space. But what's really telling there for me is before you did that, it's the moment of when the event happened and before you reacted in your conditioned way that you had grown up with and would be perfectly, could be excused and validated because that's what you grew up around. There was a gap.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what meditation gives you. It's the gap between the thing happening and how we react.
Yeah.
So instead you responded and you decided how you would like to respond instead of just boom, fuse lit, off we go.
Yeah.
And so even before those meditations, you were already moving into a space where you had cultivated enough self-awareness that your behavior began to change.
Yeah.
And you then had felt like, I have control in how I want to react in this moment.
Yeah.
And that is essentially for me what life is. It's a bunch of events and stuff and things coming at us. And your day is dozens, if not hundreds of individual decisions on how am I going to react in this moment?
Yeah.
Am I going to listen to someone right now while they're talking to me? Am I going to choose a food that's not wine gums, which is one I struggle with? Am I going to let that person's email start to color how, I'm going to feel for the next hour?
Yeah.
And it's just a whole load of those moments. a whole lot of those gaps, those available gaps where we can choose.
Absolutely.
And obviously now, for you with meditation, you're probably widening that gap each time and feeling more comfortable in there.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. It really is, because for me, starting off my day with meditation allows me to show up a better version of myself. I think better version is probably not the right way to say it, but a more, it is. It's that it allows me to be less reactionary in a negative sense, because I am coming from a very centered place and a very present place where, a lot of the time when I was reacting before as a teenager, I wasn't actually reacting to the situation that was at hand. I was reacting to trauma that I'd gone through, and that I could never channel somewhere else, So you're channeling it in that moment of aggression and violence or whatever it is. It wasn't really about what was going on at the time. Some of it was, but it was all of this backlog of all of that stuff. And for me, through therapy and through meditation, I'm now able to show up in my day and react from a place of clarity rather than a place of loaded trauma and of, unclarity. Really, I really feel like it's a very simplified way of saying it, but I do feel like if I meditate in the morning, I can just go through my day with so much more clarity, and it allows me to show up as a nicer version of myself. And
because it doesn't mean, I think sometimes people think, oh, you're a meditator, well, then you just must be in a great mood all the time, or everything must be just easy, or you never get ratty. And you're like, well, no, for me, and I wonder is it the same for you? Like I do, of course, there are things that trigger me. We are a result of all our experiences, and there will be things that people say or do that just, push your buttons. But I guess the difference for me is, again, because you're constantly widening that gap and shining a light into that gap, I'm not as ratty as I would have gotten in the past. I'm not as, it's not as acute, my reaction to whatever it happens to be. And it certainly doesn't last as long. And I think that's the big one. I might go like, for fuck's sake, what? But within 30 seconds or so, I'm starting to calm down, and I go, okay, look, what's the best way to respond to this?
That's so true. I never thought of it like that. That's so true. It doesn't last as long. That's what it is for me. Because when I would be triggered by something, it could last days, weeks, months even. And now it can be accessed and dealt with so much quicker, and that's so much healthier. I never thought of it like that. It's so true.
So what does your daily practice look like then for people who are feeling inspired and think, I want a bit of that action? Is it a particular style of meditation you do? How long would you do? Does it matter to you how long, or what does it look like generally?
For me, it's guided meditation, and I do benefit. I try kind of all stuff, but the regular kind of ones are like a 12-minute is usually my sweet spot of guided meditation. That's just stuff. Sometimes I'll look up on the day and feel like I need more compassion today. I woke up and I felt like I needed it, so I'll look up a guided meditation for it. Or sometimes I'll wake up and I'll feel anxious, which is, I don't really struggle with that. But sometimes I do, and I'll be able to address it in meditation. So I'll look up, is there a guided meditation for that? And I use the Calm app. That's been amazing. That's been really amazing. Somebody told me about that a long time ago, and I couldn't get into it, but I have recently. And
it's sometimes, to me, it seems a little bit like music. Like looking for guided meditations. There are going to be voices and styles that resonate with you, and ones that you just don't. Personally, I don't like listening to a guided meditation in a strong Australian accent. I don't mind the Australian accent, but in that close in my head, I don't know what it is. It's just a frequency thing, or if it's it may be the music is just kind of irritating, or there's a lot of factors, but it's like listening. You like a band, so you like a voice, and then you kind of gravitate towards that.
I totally feel that. For me, I much prefer listening to a female voice. It feels much more tender and gentle to me for whatever reason. I don't know whether that is part of just having amazing women in my life growing up, and them always being the comfort blanket. And amazing men. Like, my dad's my best friend in the world, probably the person I'm closest to the most in the world. So I've been lucky to grow up with a very solid family,
Yeah.
home life. And that's why I never thought I needed meditation, or I never thought I needed therapy. I was always like, I have the best family ever, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
we're so close, and they're so understanding of me, and vice versa. And so I was always like, you know, why would I need to do therapy, or why would I need to meditate? But it's everything else that was happening outside of my home. But for me, yeah, I do have an affiliation with comfort and gentleness and women, you know, because I have two amazing older sisters probably, and an amazing mom. So I do like to listen to a female voice, and I think mantra stuff I really like as well.
So for people who may not be familiar with that, mantra is essentially a syllable, a word, or a phrase that we repeat generally silently in our own minds over and over again. And when our mind wanders off, we just bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that that's been great for me, and something that ties into that kind of thing of, I was saying, of like anger management or finding compassion for other people. I was on a plane again for some reason, you know. Well, I'm just always on planes, I guess.
That's the job.
Yeah, that is the job. Yeah. But I was on a plane.
It's a good sign though, your band's doing well.
Yeah,
if you keep saying boat,
yeah.
that could be an issue.
Yeah, I was on the tube again, you know.
Yeah.
But I was on a plane, and I'd been working in therapy and in Reiki on a subject that could cause me a lot of trauma in my life, and that's something that, you know, I'm not here to talk about. It's something that I've dealt with, but I just could not, in my heart and in my soul, find compassion for these people that caused me hurt. You know, I just couldn't. I was trying and I was trying and I was trying in therapy, and I just couldn't get the breakthrough. And I was trying to find it. You know, I need to find compassion for these people somewhere, and I just couldn't do it. And then I clicked on a meditation podcast on Spotify, and it was there was this meditation. I clicked on it because it was only 3 minutes long, and I was on a plane, and I was like, it had posed the question, can you meditate for other people? And I thought that was an interesting question, because I was like, well, obviously I can't meditate here for you and make you have a Zen day, you know what I mean? That's impossible. Maybe it's not, I don't know, but for me it seems like it would be. So I just liked the question, then I clicked on it, and then it turned out that it wasn't that. It was, it's this mantra that you start off with, and it's just a brilliant exercise that it's gotten me through a lot, and I've kind of made it fit for me as well in terms of my life. And it's very simple, but it's a mantra that you start off and you think of somebody that you really love, that you love just with your whole heart, and that you just want to do well. And you sit in your meditation and you say, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. That's the mantra. You repeat that for as long as you want, really. I do it usually for like 2 minutes. And I just think about that person. Sometimes it's my parents, sometimes it's Jimmy from the band, sometimes it's my girlfriend, it's whoever, you know, just comes to my mind. And then the next thing that you're told to do in the meditation is you say it for all of humanity, whether it's people that you have differences with, whether it's people you might on a surface level dislike or think you might hate or just totally disagree with. And the mantra is, may all beings be safe, may all beings be happy, may all beings be healthy, may all beings live with ease. And that, for me, I was like blown away. That was the door that opened to me to be like, I can include those people that caused me all of that hurt.
Or you could just add a bit on saying, except Tony.
Yeah. Except them fucking. But what I've added into that meditation is I think of those people that caused me hurt, and I do it for them as well. So after I do that, may all beings be safe, I go back then and I find somebody who's caused me hurt or trauma or trouble in my life, and I directly meditate on them and I say the same thing. May you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease, to them. And that's been the most game-changing. Just like, that just allowed me to grow so much and leave so much trauma behind. It was just, I feel emotional now even thinking about it. Just because the growth, I just thought I'll never ever be able to give them any sort of compassion or empathy or understanding. I just can't. But when I found that meditation, it just changed everything for me. It just unlocked so many doors. And for some reason, since that and since all the therapy I did on that subject and other subject, compassion is the quickest thing to make me feel emotional. When I see somebody being compassionate in my day-to-day life, I just tear up, because it's just so, I just think it's so wonderful to see people be compassionate.
You must be a mess when they pop up in your Instagram feed.
Oh my God, yeah. Just
those good news movement ones.
Yeah. See anybody being nice to an animal, and I'm just, okay, it's game over. I'm just in a flood of tears.
That guy who rescues dogs in Thailand. You're like,
Yeah.
Don't show me any more videos.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Yeah.
For me, meditation is one of the things that keeps me on the rails. You know, it keeps me feeling secure and steady and operating from a good starting off point.
Yeah.
There are other things then that I feel knock me off.
Yeah.
Alcohol is one of those things for me.
Yeah.
I have to be so wary of it. And it's something in my life that drifts in and out. And I've still to this day wish that it had just had nothing.
Yeah.
But it's insidious, and it can creep in and kind of lull you in with, sure, go on. And then I instantly feel like the minute I take a sip, I can feel myself moving away from this nice place that I've cultivated. And it was a place that I used to want to hide in years ago.
Yeah.
But a lot of those neural pathways are still there.
Yeah.
And some part of me still thinks, if you have a drink, you're going to feel better.
Yeah.
You know, and I know logically that's absolutely not the case, because I love the space I've cultivated just in my normal day, and I don't like giving that up.
Yeah.
Particularly to a hangover, which is it's just the worst.
Yeah.
Is alcohol, does that have the same meaning for you? Or is there anything else that you know that kind of, you know, knocks you off your high flying disc, as Esther Hicks once said?
Yeah, alcohol is one for me. Alcohol and food, I think, are my two. Alcohol in a big way. I used alcohol when I was growing up, because I was always afraid of being hurt growing up, and still am. You know, I'm a lot more comfortable with it now. I'm a lot less afraid. So I always found it difficult to talk to people, you know, and it gave me a reputation when I was growing up, because I was also confident, but it gave me a reputation growing up. Everyone would be like, he's up his own arse, you know, he just want to talk to you. He's a bit full of himself, loves himself, as if that's a negative thing to say, you know.
Yeah,
he loves himself. Really, you know? Yeah, as if
it's so Irish,
isn't it? Yeah. But it was always
all the Americans are like, love yourself, man. We're all like, look at him, he loves himself.
He loves himself. Imagine that.
Yeah. Go back to hating yourself like the rest of us.
Literally, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, growing up, it was very much that I think people, you know, I could be overthinking that, but I think people did have that opinion of me, because I always dressed kind of outlandishly, or you know, I was always comfortable in expressing myself through clothing, but then I wouldn't be the most conversational person if I didn't know you. I just had a lack of trust, and I had a deep sense of, I don't want to be hurt, you know. So I used alcohol throughout my teenage years and my early 20s as if I have a few drinks, I'll be able to feel comfortable in the pub. I'll be able to talk to the girls, you know, I'll be able to chat someone up at the bar much easier than if I was sober. And it got to a point where I used to feel very self-conscious and very anxious walking into a pub for some reason. You know, when you first walk through the door and everyone turns and kind of looks, I hated that moment so much.
Yeah.
So then I started pre-drinking before going to the pub, you know, with my friends. And it was kind of an unspoken thing that we all felt the same thing, but we'd all have a couple of cans before going to the pub. So you can walk in the door with a bit of a, you know, you're not that uncomfortable. And I remember thinking, you know, that's probably not a good thing. And I remember the first time I spoke to Pauline in my therapy about that, I kind of hadn't realised how bad it was, that was such a terrible thing to do, to be like, oh, once I have a few drinks, I'll be able to talk to your one at the bar, be able to have the crack with your man that comes over to me. I won't feel guarded, you know, and that's something that I really had to work on. I had to start like literally doing exercises of going on sober dates, you know, terrifying. So terrifying.
Well, I remember reading a bit. There's a wonderful lady called Annie Grace who wrote a book called This Naked Mind, which I really recommend. She also has a podcast. I really recommend for anyone who's thinking of cutting back or is just kind of fed up with alcohol and looking for a way to leave it aside. But she says, you know, and she points out but you never think of it. She's like, you know what, it is awkward. Yeah. You know, if you walk into a bunch of strangers in a bar or restaurant or whatever it is, it's awkward.
Yeah.
It's not that there's something wrong with you for not being totally comfortable in that scenario. Yeah. It's going to be an awkward situation. Yeah. You're going to feel that way because technically it is one of those situations. You know, it's like if you stand in the rain, you'll get wet. It's the same, you know, and you'll ease into it.
Yeah.
But once I kind of read that, I was like, Okay, so it's not just me.
Yeah,
It's the situation itself is a challenging one.
That's
you know?
brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me feel very comfortable now, you know, because I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Because even today, for example, like when I first walked in here, I felt uncomfortable, you know, I felt a little bit awkward. Now I don't. But before.
Well, I was in my dressing gown.
It was just the way you looked at me when I walked in.
Very loosely tied.
It's very suggestive, yeah.
Yeah.
But before, I would still be feeling uncomfortable, you know, and I'd still be eating myself inside, and I'd still be like just a mess inside, really. But now it is, like you said, that gap of as soon as I sit down, I'm able to do a little debrief in my head to be like, oh, this is grand. You know, you're actually fine. Nobody is trying to hurt you here. Nobody is willing for you to do wrong or to fail or any of those things. Everybody is just showing up here as themselves and wanting to have a conversation. And that's a very quick conversation that I have in my head when we first sit down, you know, in the moments of silence. And it's a really nice place to be in because I'm able to do that now. I feel much more comfortable in a social setting and in a pub without having to be drunk, you know, or having to drink. So yeah, it's a really nice place to be in. I think food as well was something that I only realized very late on, very recently really, was that I would feel awful all the time. Just feel like, wake up feeling hungover without drinking and being like, why do I feel terrible when I wake up? Like I'm in my 20s and I'm in a band and like, why do I feel just terrible physically? And it was just my diet was so bad, just so much sugar and so much carbs all the time. And it was just like, I went on like a nutrition plan before this tour and I lost loads of weight and got super fit. And because even I box, so I box 3 times a week. And that, when I started doing that, I was like, everyone was like, you must feel amazing. I was like, I still feel terrible. If I'm being really honest, like I love boxing, but I still feel awful like in the mornings and stuff. And it was just because my diet was awful. My nutrition was just terrible. And you know, when I say that to people, it's like, I'm not the type of person that will eat a sweet. I'll go and buy a multi-pack of chocolate and eat all of it. You know, it's not just, I'm not having a biscuit with a cup of tea. I'm eating the whole pack, you know. That's why I'm eating it in bed at 2:00 in the morning. That's why I wake up feeling awful, you know. So, and it was obviously some sort of comfort for me, you know, that was, and once I realized that and got that in check, it's amazing to wake up and just feel good.
Yeah.
Just feel really good. And then to marry that with a meditation in the morning, I just show up in my day feeling amazing. You know, it just gives me so much confidence and so much, I just feel settled, you know. I don't feel like I'm just running in headfirst into the day. I feel like I'm walking in at my own pace. And I'm sure there is somewhere subconsciously a knowing of that amazing thing that you just said about it is awkward. I feel like I probably subconsciously did start to know that once I cleared all of the stuff. And that kind of gave me a level of just comfort to be able to walk into somewhere, you know, and not feel. Because even say today, I came in here with my band member, you know, that's a little bit of a shield. You know, I didn't walk in here by myself. I very rarely walk in anywhere by myself. I use the band and my friends as shields a lot, you know, and people. And that's still something I'm learning to do, is just to be totally on my own in terms of a social situation, to be able to show up to something like this by myself. You know?
I'm sure I was Dermot and Dave for 20 years. I'm still getting used to just being Dermot.
Yeah, of course.
Ryan, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I hope you get nice rest before you move into the next phase of world domination.
Yeah, me too.
Love to all the bandmates and the rest of Picture This.
Thank you.
And yeah, really grateful. Thanks for chatting to me.
Me too. Thank you.